On a cool evening in early March 1981, the happiest place on Earth bore witness to an event so unexpected and horrifying that it forever altered the way Disneyland handled its image and its security. For the first time in its 26-year history, a life was taken within the walls of the Magic Kingdom. This was the life of Melanchthon Christian Mel Yorba III, an 18-year-old young man whose only mistake was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But what exactly happened on that evening, and what was the aftermath? Well, let's talk about it. This is Death at Disneyland, the infamous death of Mel Yorba. Mel Yorba was just 18 years old at the time of his death. Friends and family described him as lively, energetic and friendly, a young man full of potential. Others described him as easygoing with a bright personality. He was born on the 6th of September in 1962 in Riverside County, California, and was from a well-known, respected family. On March the 7th, 1981, Mel and a group of his friends went to Disneyland to celebrate a special after-hours event. That evening, Disneyland was not operating under its usual conditions. The park was hosting a private party organised by Raw Industries, a Southern California aerospace manufacturing company. Around 10,000 tickets were distributed to Raw employees and their guests, allowing access to Disneyland after its regular closing time. The atmosphere was festive but slightly different from the usual daytime crowds. There were more teenagers and young adults, less supervision, and looser controls over behaviour. For many attendees, it was a chance to enjoy Disneyland in a freer, more relaxed environment. For Mel, it was supposed to be a night of fun and celebration. It was near the Matterhorn bobsleds attraction that the evening turned deadly. There are multiple reports of what happened that night, but we do know at around 10 at night, Yorba accidentally bumped into another park guest, a 28-year-old man named James O'Driscoll. James was with his girlfriend, 25-year-old Julie Holderer. According to James, Julie had told him that Mel had touched her inappropriately. An argument broke out between the two groups. Witnesses described it as a mix of shoving, yelling and posturing, the kind of confrontation that might have fizzled out under other circumstances. However, O'Driscoll was carrying a knife. After landing a few punches on each other, in the heat of the moment, he pulled out the weapon and stabbed Mel Yorba viciously. Mel staggered away, bleeding heavily. Chaos broke out as guests screamed and tried to clear a path. Disneyland security responded quickly, but at the time, the park did not have efficient emergency teams on site. The Disneyland nurse who attended Mel, who lay bleeding on the ground, decided not to call 911. This was because she was worried it would bring bad attention to Disneyland. Instead of calling 911, he was picked up, placed into a van, and drove to a hospital in Gardens Grove. This was not a medical van, and they had no life-saving equipment in it. According to reports, the staff who was driving Mel missed 2 trauma centres on the way to the hospital, which would have been better at handling the situation. By the time he arrived at the hospital, he was already in cardiac arrest. Doctors knew there was no saving him, and the happiest place on Earth had, for the first time, become the scene of a murder. Meanwhile, Disneyland security moved swiftly to contain the situation. O'Driscoll's girlfriend was apprehended as she attempted to leave the park, ensuring that potential witnesses and accomplices could be questioned. A search of the surrounding area was quickly organised. Divers were deployed and recovered a knife, an 8.5-inch blade, from one of the park's waterways, reported to be either the Sleeping Beauty Castle moat or the Submarine Voyage Lagoon. Despite the crowds and confusion, O'Driscoll remained inside the park for only a short time before security located him, hiding in the bushes of Adventureland. Within a little over an hour, he was taken into custody, bringing an end to Disneyland's first and only manhunt for a murder suspect within its gates. The tragedy triggered an immediate and overwhelming public outcry. Unlike past incidents where Disneyland's influence often tempered local response, Anaheim officials spoke out forcefully. Leaders from both the Anaheim Fire Department and Orange County's Office of Emergency Medical Services publicly expressed frustration. Chief of Operations Marcel Thompson told the Los Angeles Times that his department had warned Disneyland about the risks of not involving local paramedics. He said, "Something like this is tough to accept. We had a fire station just a minute away and a medical unit only 3 minutes out." Further criticism came from County Emergency Services officials, who disclosed that Disneyland had previously declined to call for paramedics during earlier medical emergencies. In those cases, concerns about disrupting the park's carefully curated image reportedly outweighed the need for timely medical intervention. One official said, "The city of Anaheim tried to get them to change, but Disneyland didn't want the commotion that paramedics might cause. They decided it was better to avoid any public spectacle." Media reports at the time emphasised that Disneyland's reluctance to summon outside help stemmed largely from the fear that the presence of emergency vehicles and personnel could tarnish its family-friendly image. This long-standing internal policy was now exposed to public scrutiny in the harshest way possible. Meanwhile, James was charged with second-degree murder. Superior Court Judge Everett Dickey said James was a ticking time bomb with a chip on his shoulder. He did not believe the defense plea that Mel lunged towards him, causing the stabbing. He said, "You were in a public place, unnecessarily armed with a deadly weapon, and you killed a stranger. Even if it was true somebody grabbed your girlfriend's rear end, it didn't justify killing." I will mention, James and his girlfriend were the only ones that said Mel had done this. Other witnesses disagreed. James was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Roughly a month after Mel Yorba's death, his grieving family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Disneyland, seeking $60 million in damages. Although the trial ultimately resulted in a jury award far below that amount, $600,000, the Yorba family felt a sense of justice. His mother said, "We owed it to Mel to make sure the truth came out, so that nothing like this could happen again. Now, everyone knows we were right." Mel Yorba's death remains an uncomfortable chapter in Disneyland's history, one that is rarely discussed openly by the park. In fact, it fed into one of the most persistent urban legends about Disneyland, the idea that no one dies at Disneyland. The myth suggests that no matter how severe an injury, no guest is ever officially declared dead within the park's borders. The implication is that authorities or park officials will delay pronouncements of death until a guest has been transported off-site, preserving the illusion that Disneyland is free from death, which obviously isn't the case. Today, Disneyland is a very different place when it comes to security and safety. Metal detectors, bag searchers, uniformed security officers, and paramedic stations are standard. Every guest passes through multiple layers of screening before even reaching the entrance gates. Disneyland also implemented several changes, including hiring an ambulance service and adjusting its emergency protocols to ensure more timely and effective responses to medical emergencies. In many ways, Mel's death and the horrifying realization that violence could reach even into Disneyland helped catalyze those changes. May he rest in peace. As always, this is not an AI channel, I do everything myself, and if you appreciate my work, subscribe, and if you want to go the extra step to support the channel, maybe consider becoming a member. Let me know what you thought about this case in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.